The Man Whore Podcast is sponsored by HotMovies.com. Try out some ethical paid-for porn for free with none of those hidden fees or secret recurring subscriptions when you sign up at HotMovies.com/bonus and use the promo code MANWHORE. Now let's get to the show.
Welcome to the Man Whore Podcast.
Hey, right now I just want to give a shout out to all my West Coast fan whores, hoping that you're all staying safe and your families are okay. This is Billy Procida, and you are listening to the Man Whore Podcast. And that feels like a very weird sentence to say with nothing in between the two, but it's fine. We're going to move on. Hi, everyone. How you doing? Welcome to my show where I typically talk to women I've hooked up with about sex, dating, and why we didn't work out. This week's special guest is not one of my former flames. No. Although, I don't know, some women may call him a silver fox. So, hey, Brian Howie is on the podcast this week. Brian Howie from The Great Love Debate. And I'm looking forward to sharing him with y'all in a bit. But first, show dates, people. Show dates. Okay. This Sunday, November 18th. I wrote October 18th, so I'm dumb. November 18th. I've got Comedy Fight Club down on the Lower East Side at Lucky Jack's. That's going to be, I think, a 9:30 show, something like that. Free to attend. Then November 24th, Queens. I'm going to be at QED in Astoria on the 9 p.m. show. Oh, with former guest of the pod, Tracy Carnazzo. And then November 28th in Brooklyn, I'll be at Much More's on the 6:30 p.m. show. So I hope y'all will come out and say hey to me at those. I did just get back from Los Angeles. A shout out, by the way, to those of you who came out to the LA live show. We had a small but attentive crowd as me and three other ladies. We went there. We went to places. I am looking forward to sharing it with y'all next week. I did have fun in Los Angeles, did some stand-up, did the live show. I attended PatreCon, which I got to say, really left me leaving the West Coast just feeling really inspired and motivated by like all these other content creators. It's pretty wild because I'm like just having casual conversations with people who have hundreds of thousands of subscribers on YouTube and get like millions of hits on anything and everything that they post. And then I'm just like, oh, hi guys. I'm just like, I'm this fun little sex podcast over here. Yeah. Hi. Yeah. I'm the small slutty guy in the corner. If anyone wants to say hi. It really felt kind of like being the small fish in the big pond. But I really got to learn from a lot of these people and from a lot of these workshops, and really was awesome and really helped me formulate some fun ideas we're going to have with the podcast moving forward into 2019 as we approach 5 years of doing this fucking thing. So, just a shout out to Patreon for throwing a great conference. And hey, shout out to my patrons for supporting the Man Whore Podcast and being a part of this like really cool, uplifting, sex positive community that for some reason has rallied around my little podcast over here. So just a shout out to all my members. Expect some fun announcements, moving forward. Yeah. But now I want to get to your emails, people. Your emails, those are some of my favorite things to honestly wake up to in the morning. This first one is coming from Vera. And the title is, You've Reached Scandinavia. Hey, what you guys are talking about is so important, and even in progressive Sweden, many sexual things are still taboo. Oh, and then, by the way, just imagine that this has a really funny Swedish accent. I can't really do one right now. My throat is a little scratchy. Says, although we do have our own Hefner who runs swingers clubs. Okay. Scandinavians love to be discreet and are so afraid of confrontations that they don't even dare to speak out about fetishes or desires. This podcast has really made my day so many times. Some of her email is a bit confusing to me. This is the part I definitely understood. She ends with, and let me know if you want to go old school with writing super sexy letters and naked Polaroids. Oh, and yes, you may have my permission to come. Very forward, very blunt, very strong. I'm going to give her points for that. She also attached a photo of her. It's a picture of a Polaroid of who I'm assuming is her in this like lacy black bra. And then she wrote man whore on the Polaroid into it. Of course, Vera, I'm thrilled that my show is reaching other countries that some Americans wouldn't even know where they were on a map or a globe. But you do say, hey, you suggest maybe exchanging naked photos, sexy letters to each other. But in fact, I already offer this on my Patreon page. Yes, at the $10 and up level, you get to be a part of the Peep Show, which is our super sexy secret kick group. And all we do is exchange sexy pictures and compliments and really good gifts. And yeah, I even toss my cock into the ring here and there. So maybe consider joining us over there. It's a fun time in the Peep Show. Next email. This one I actually had to sit on for a while because there was like a lot going on. I got a DM on Instagram from a woman, Claire. I first got an Instagram DM from this girl, Claire. She lays out a problem of sorts, and I told her to shoot me an email with a little more information. Because just as a fun note, like if you want to say hi into my DMs, introduce yourself, say like, hey, I'm a fan of the show, and then say what you want to say. But if you have like a serious question, if you like need me to like use more than just my thumbs to answer it, which is really the threshold for any serious question. If it's really serious, I shouldn't be answering it with my thumbs. But if you have something like you really need me to comment on, shoot me an email. It's way easier for me. I said all that mostly to stall so I could find her message. I'm gonna mesh together her DM and her email. Claire writes, hey, Billy, I started listening to the podcast about a week or two ago, and I love it so much. I'm only in the 40s episodes wise, but I'm making progress. Hey, Claire, you're killing it. She says, I'm kind of in a weird place with my boyfriend right now and need some expert advice. I've been dating my boyfriend for around 8 months now, and he's never gone down on me. My boyfriend and I are both 17 and in high school. I'm a year above him grade-wise. He has only been with virgins before, and I'm the first girl he's been with that wasn't one. He says he won't go down on me because it will make him think about all the other guys I've had sex with, which is only 6 compared to his 4. To be fair, 2 of those guys were his friends, but that shouldn't matter. When I give him blowjobs, I don't think about girls he's been with. Anyway, when I confronted him about this, I told him I thought his excuse wasn't fully true and that there must be another reason he won't go down on me. He got upset that I didn't believe him and said he would go down on me next time just to stop talking about the subject. If he's not going to enjoy it, I don't really want him to do it. I'm just wondering if you think there is something more to his story because he's gone down on other girls. And should I let him go down on me now if he won't like it? I don't want him to if he isn't having fun, but at the same time, he has to get over this eventually. There's just so much in this email. There's just so much meat on this bone. But Billy had an opinion. And we know that that's a very dangerous thing to let me have. But here we go. Let's start with the most obvious part of the email. Both of these people are 17 years old. So Claire, your sexual expectations of this guy should be pretty low, as his should be for you, because no one is doing their best work at 17. Nobody. But, however, that is not an excuse to not go down on you. Just because your expectations of him are low, don't mean that they're that low. Especially if he's still expecting you to suck his boy dick. Emphasis on the boy in boy dick. He is a boy, a silly boy. When you initially messaged me on Instagram, I was like instantly all, girl, dump him next. But when you shared your ages and that he's what I'm gathering is a junior in high school, I'm more prone to give him one and only one chance. Because remember, right now, he's an idiot. He's just a young, slut-shaming product of toxic masculinity and misogyny. It's not entirely his fault. He's a fucking moron. But then again, so are almost all 17-year-old boys. Your likely soon-to-be ex-boyfriend is probably telling you the truth. He is probably concerned that he's going to think about other men while he's going down on you. Okay, he's never gone down on someone who's not a virgin before, which, by the way, is a great way to save yourself from being compared to other lovers if there's no one to be compared to. With virgins, you're always going to be the best she ever had until she has someone else. So you just get to consistently set yourself up to always be the best. That's cheating, not a fan of cheating. Now, it's very possible he concocted this story at some point in his head when he was younger. He also could have maybe adopted this thought from a pathetic sexist older relative, and maybe it genuinely got stuck in his head. Okay, it could be the same worry a boy might have about seeing another dick in the locker room, or attempting to stimulate his prostate, or kissing another boy in just a purely performative context. Right? It's the fear of any, at the time, straight identifying high school boy. What if he realizes he likes it a little or a lot? Because if he likes it, it means he's gay. Because, hey, he couldn't possibly be bisexual or a number of other sexually fluid orientations. Likewise, if he's imagining other men down there, he might imagine them and then worry that his boners for your exes and not for you. Again, it would threaten his precious heterosexual identity. The problem with this logic is he's not thinking about all the dudes you've blown when you're sucking his dick, or these 6 boys you fucked while he's fucking you. Oh, all of a sudden, he's able to perform, and it's not going to be too weird for him. It's incredibly convenient that the one sex act that focuses on your pleasure is the one he's worried will bring up all of these thoughts about other boys. And by the way, if he can't go down on you without thinking about other guys, that says way more about him than it says about your incredibly limited sexual history. Okay, because you know what I'm thinking about when I'm eating pussy? Pussy. And sometimes what's that mole over there? But most of the time, pussy, not other men. Just so I've said it, is there potential he has past trauma that he hasn't shared with you that makes him averse to having a vulva in his face? Sure. It's an incredibly minimal chance, but sure, that's there. And if he breaks down into tears and admits to his mom sitting on his face when he was 9, he's going to get a pass on this. I'm just not expecting that to be what's going on. Now, your instincts are right. You don't want to force him to do something he doesn't want to do. But he has offered. And so here's what I think you should do. Again, I feel incredibly uncomfortable giving this advice to minors, but I have a good feeling that if I was, a 27-year-old brunette with a C cup and I was a sex educator, no one's going to have a problem with me sharing it. So, and I was asked, so I'm going to say, I say, he's agreed to give it a try, call his bluff, and don't give him an ultimatum beforehand. Don't be like, oh, you better like this and get ready to do this or else, because then that gives him incentive to lie. You really need to lull him into a sense of comfort to tell you the truth. Plus you don't need to warn someone that you might break up with him. You can just break up with him. So let him go down on you. And then later that night or the next day, debrief. Ask him how it was honestly. If he says anything short of, not as bad as I thought, or that was really awesome, you break up with him. You're a senior in high school, I take it, right? So you're not going to waste your time with this behavior. Full stop. We're done. And until this happens, he doesn't get blowjobs either. Honestly, I want to tell you not to fuck him, but in the extremely rare situation that his cock game is strong at 17, which again, I doubt because no one's doing their best work at 17. If you think someone who's 17 is giving you tremendous cock game, you don't know what tremendous cock game is, okay? I want to tell you not to fuck him either because I have a good feeling he doesn't care whether or not you get off and he's just happy to just get the jackhammer in you. But I also don't want to tell you to deprive yourself of like something you enjoy. So it's like, if you want to be fucking him, fuck him. But only if that like physically feels good for you. Don't do it just because it makes you feel closer to him and then he gets to use you as a sock. That's just, do it if you like it. But I have a good feeling that penetration is not the thing rocking your world right now. So maybe don't. Because like he needs to, this just needs, you need to figure this out. Because this can be indicative of just his view on chicks. Like sometimes people go like, oh, it's not a big deal. But I'm like, I bet you that this carries out into other factions of the relationship where he doesn't care as much about what you're into or your pleasure. Or how was your day? I just wouldn't be surprised if this shows up elsewhere. And hey, if he pushes back, send him a link to this podcast episode right here that I'm reading. Because I will say right now to him, hi, Claire's boyfriend. You're a young, dumb, stupid boy. And you will not get away with not going down on women with actual adult women. And by adult, I mean pays her own rent. Personally, if he listened to this, I have a feeling he'll realize he was just being silly. But then again, I also thought Beto O'Rourke was going to win. So fuck me, right? Yeah. So that's what happens when we let Billy have an opinion. He ends up giving high school kids oral sex advice, kind of. There's no way that was legal, was it? I think it is. Again, I think if my name was Jennifer and I was a brunette with a C cup, I don't think anyone would have an issue with me saying any of that to her. But I acknowledge, if any of you feel dirty hearing me give that advice, don't worry, I also feel the same. Let me move on to one more message, just something that kind of clear the air, something that kind of, cleanse the palate, so to speak. I got an Instagram message. I got a little DM from one of my fan whores on Patreon regarding the bonus episodes. It writes, awkward moments. When you're crushing work while listening to Billy's podcast with your earphones in, and you stop it to go to a meeting, then you take your phone out of your pocket in said meeting, which is a conference call with others in the company, and your phone starts randomly playing this podcast very loudly, and it's right at the moment where Billy is discussing sex with porn stars. Complete mortification. What I read in the subtext of that DM was the Patreon bonus episodes are absolutely worth it. That's what I read in the subtext of that. You really got to be like an English major to understand the subtext of that DM. It's okay if you didn't. It's fine. But oh my, I hope you're still employed so you can still afford your fan whore membership. And I hope you enjoyed that bonus episode with Matt Slayer. And you too can send me your comments, your questions, your titty pictures, or your embarrassing Man Whore Podcast listening stories to manwhorepod@gmail.com. Claire, if you're only in the 40s in terms of episode numbers, well, surprise, surprise, when you hear this, 3 months from now. Speaking of Patreon bonus episode, it's time for the fan whore appreciation moment. All right. This is the part of the podcast where I like to give a little shout out to some of the members of our fan whore community on Patreon. First shout out is going to Paige Janelle. Your membership was short-lived, so not really much I could say about you. You didn't stick around long enough for me to get to know you well. But what I do know is that is one of the best $20 minus fees I've ever received in my life, and thank you for that. Thank you, and a shout out to Jessica B, an avid runner out in Los Angeles. It was wonderful meeting you at our fan whore meetup before the live show. You have a good taste in whiskey. Yes, you do. And one more going out to Susanna Garrett, who is, I have come to learn, is quite the MILF and public breastfeeding advocate. And I am not going to step further into either of those two topics because there's no way I'm going to do that one right. Thank you, Susanna, for your support. I'm glad you're part of the community. And you too can become a member for as little as $1 a month. Not only will you be supporting the Man Whore podcast financially, but you'll also receive exclusive bonus episodes of the Man Whore podcast, as well as access to secret sex-positive discussion groups, such as the Champagne Room and the Peep Show. To become a member, just go on over to patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. That's Patreon, patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. Before I get to this week's guest, Brian Howie, I want to remind y'all to go try out hotmovies.com. Yeah, you know the drill. Hashtag pay for your porn, hashtag pay for some of your porn, and why not pay for some of that porn over at hotmovies.com? I think Hot Movies genuinely accounts for about 30 to 40% of my porn watching is ethical and paid for. Hotmovies.com is honestly kind of like the Netflix of porn. It's a pay-per-minute site where you buy a bundle of minutes and you have access to hundreds of thousands of movies that span multiple decades. They've really got it all. It's almost disturbing how specific their categories can be. And whatever category you pick, there's still 9 movies. Hotmovies.com actually had the exclusive release of Aiden Starr's new movie, Hot for Transsexuals 6. I cannot speak to numbers 1 through 5, but number 6 has some porn history in it, in a sense. Shawn Michaels does his first scene on camera with a trans performer. Yes, that's no, not the wrestling Shawn Michaels, the porn Shawn Michaels. Yeah. Although first scene with a trans performer seems like be the new first anal or first girl. So, hey, I'm sure that's great and awesome. As I'm told from Hot Movies, Shawn Michaels has always been a proponent for inclusion and that this movie was really important to him. And you can read a full interview with Shawn Michaels about the subject or watch the movie yourself at hotmovies.com. Yeah, he does this scene with one Kelly Cox. Cute name. And you can actually try hotmovies.com for free. Did you know that? For free when you sign up using promo code MANWHORE. Yeah, you can try their 20-minute free trial without the code. But with the code, you get 40 free minutes because I'm looking out for you. And what's great is there's none of those like hidden fees or secret subscriptions. It's not like you're going to put in your credit card for the free trial and then 2 weeks later they just start billing you $49.95 every month. No, that's not going to be a weird surprise for you 3 months from now when you're looking over your credit card statements. They only charge you when you ask to be charged. I know this because I have put my credit card into Hot Movies and I obsessively look over my credit card statements. So look at that. Head on over to hotmovies.com/bonus. Use promo code MANWHORE for 20 free minutes on top of any package you sign up for. Again, that's hotmovies.com/bonus. Promo code MANWHORE. All right, I know you probably had enough of this raspy voice. I know I have. I want to go back to smoking a bowl and watching House of Cards. So now I need to introduce this week's guest, Brian Howie. I've known Brian a couple years now. He does a podcast, a very popular podcast called The Great Love Debate, which is also a live show. It's a live panel show. He tours all over the country. I myself have been on it, I think, 3 times. And it really is just this audience-wide discussion about dating and relationships and why we don't talk to each other anymore. There's a lot of stuff, that I agree with Brian, and then there's a lot of things I definitely don't. And then there's a lot of things where I agree with him, but not his delivery or the logic by which he got there. I ultimately think he is a man of a certain age who is appealing and bringing along other people of a certain age. And if he can get 45, 50-year-old women in his audiences to get comfortable with the feminist concept of a woman making the first move, I think there's some people in his that Brian appeals to that still are uncomfortable with a man not paying for dinner. So really, when he's promoting confidence and making first moves and not buying into what society said, that man or that relationship needs to be, in his own way, he is very feminist. But he's also a shit kicker, like myself. Like, hey, shit kicker recognizes shit kicker. You know what I mean? We have some points of view that are not always the most popular, but we don't necessarily shy away from them. One of the ones that comes up is is how the Me Too era has affected dating. He says that a lot of men, I would call them boys, a lot of men are starting to become even afraid to even hit on a woman. These are the dudes going, well, if we can't slap her ass and call her toots, then how are men and women supposed to date? Talk to each other. Like, you just don't have to do it that way, or maybe not in the workplace, which is something Brian and I agree on. I think a lot of the men who are complaining that they don't know how they can flirt with women, what they're really trying to say is they're scared that they don't know the rules. Because for a long time, we either knew the rules or they were above the rules, right? Men, and a lot of this, it's not like this is a new thing that's happening. It's that they're finally being called out on it. So I think a lot of men are scared that they don't know the rules and they know they're no longer above the rules. And I say good. I think it's good that when I'm at a play party that I'm extra conscientious where my hands are. Because sometimes I get a little loosey-goosey. Maybe my arms are flapping around a bit. I am extra cautious about that at a party, which has caused me to be extra cautious just about my general presence in the vicinity of others outside of parties. I think it's good if dudes are a bit more afraid, right? But not just for the sake of them being afraid, because that opens up the opportunity to be like, oh, now they might be willing to learn. Now maybe we can have some sex education. And maybe if we can start the sex education now at younger ages, there will be less need to have a seminar for 43-year-old men who aren't taking it seriously. I don't think the Me Too era has damaged dating at all. I think all it's going to do is make dating harder for the people who shouldn't have been allowed to be dating. It's fine by me. So Brian and I had a lively chat, as most of my chats with Brian are, whether they be in person or online. So I hope you all enjoy this one. And we also have a bonus episode on Patreon coming out exclusively on Patreon tomorrow for all of my $5 and up members. An extra snippet I took out of this episode that's just all about how Trump voters are potentially a valid deal breaker to have. I guess you'll have to hear those opinions tomorrow. But for now, let's get to me and Brian Howie.
What was the Playboy show that was on years ago? Night Calls? Are you old enough to remember Playboy Night Calls?
Whenever I could remember the password.
It was like the original call-in radio show. It was like 11:30 at night. It was like the dirty version of Loveline.
Right.
And I did that a couple times, and you'd be having an interview, but they would have a bed there, and they'd be like, let's check in with Monica and Sherry and see what's going on over there. Like, it was literally like 4 feet away from you, and you would kind of tune it out, and then you'd pay attention to it. It was weird.
I feel like that's like a similar thing that happens like if you go to a sex party you've never been before. Like, for the first 10 minutes, like, oh my God, there's people fucking. And then you go, like, by the end of it, then you start going like, okay, yeah, that's going on, that's going on.
Well, the first time I went to some dungeon over here, because my friend was a dominatrix.
You don't need to justify the reason.
No, I was there. Well, I was like, why I went there is the first time.
Sure, Brian.
And I noticed all the rolls of paper towels, and that creeped me out more than anything.
Exactly.
If there was not that, I think it would have been fine.
Yeah.
And then you get used to it.
Yeah, you notice those things more. Like
You notice those things. What are those for?
I noticed the snack table. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I saw what you just did with your hands.
Yeah,
Like,
I know that.
I don't know why orgies decide to have finger foods, like have nice individual serving stuff.
I think it breaks down walls.
Breaks down walls. I don't want. I don't know whose juices I'm putting in my mouth.
But that's the point of an orgy.
No, I think the point of the orgy is to put the people's fluids with whom you want to put into your mouth.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is there
it's
or
not
orgy
free for
etiquette?
all. Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's orgy etiquette.
I
yeah.
thought once you signed up for the orgy, everybody's in a pile.
Oh no. Well, there is debate about the uses of the term sex party and orgy. Sometimes I use interchangeably, but some make the argument that an orgy is like a pile of people and that it can be a subset of a sex party. So like you go to a sex party and see stuff going on, and in the sex party, oh, there's an orgy in that corner of a party.
I think it would be worse to be rejected at an orgy or sex party than just about anywhere else.
Sure, yeah, because there's multiple people. But the idea is if you go to a 200-person sex party,
if you're getting turned down at a sex party, that's humiliating.
It's
You're having sex with everybody here but me?
Well, but not people usually aren't having sex with everybody.
Well,
but
even
them.
percentage-wise, in a bar, maybe one person will have sex with you. At a sex party, theoretically, several would. So if you're not doing well at the sex party, I think that would be humiliating.
I would say not humiliating, disappointing. Maybe not humiliating, because I don't know if humiliation maybe involves other people seeing that you get rejected by multiple people.
Maybe.
But I think there's a common misconception about like that there is orgy etiquette. Like, yeah, there's still consent involved. There's still agency. There's still like safer sex practices involved.
Is 3 people an orgy? What's the definition?
I'm of the opinion 5. I think 5 or more, because I think 4 is a foursome or a swap. I think 5 or more, you got yourself a nice little orgy going on.
Right, so it's not 2 couples.
Yeah. I think some people say 4, and I say nonsense.
So 5's an orgy.
Yeah.
So if there's 5 people there and you're orgying, somebody can be like, not, I only want this combo platter.
In theory, yeah, you just have to negotiate everything. They have to do this.
The guys have to talk about what they're comfortable with each other?
Everybody has to do this terrifying thing where they communicate with the person they're going to have sex with. I know.
That sounds terrible.
That terrifying thing that you talk about people not wanting to do at Starbucks. It's just like, yeah, just fucking talk to them. I don't know. Like, people will email me asking advice like, oh, how do I ask the person this? Fucking ask them. I don't know.
Is most of the negotiation conversation between the dudes?
I think between everybody involved.
How close can I get to another dude?
If that is a boundary for you. So, for example, like, I'm okay with incidental contact. That's not a flag on the field, right?
How incidental?
If thighs are rubbing up or if we're doing a DP, like balls may slide.
Yeah, I think I'm out.
And that's fine.
But I think I would have to say that.
Yeah, right. So let's say you're in a little couple, or let's say you're even in a threesome with another fella, which I just appreciate to have assistance with the lady. So just, division of labor. But let's say she's like, okay, now I want you both. I want you in my ass and I want you in my pussy. And if that's a little too close for comfort for you, you can say, actually, like, I don't know if I'm really comfortable with that. And then she'd be like, great, then stick your cock back in my mouth. I don't know.
What's more, not normal, common, the men who are not comfortable with incidental contact, or is incidental contact, like if you're here, of course you're expecting that?
Well, I think,
how many guys just want multiple chicks and the dudes are 2 feet away?
Well, they haven't quite finished the research. They haven't, but they haven't done studies or anything. But I think
in your personal experience of hearing or experiencing.
Sure. When I don't go to like traditional swinger clubs. I go to like the party I go to is like a very queer friendly, diverse crowd. So, I mean, you're going to get plenty of guys there who are not only okay with incidental contact, they invite it. But, I think if you go to a party, if you're going to be in a group sex environment, I think you need to like not be, if you're a dude who's so uncomfortable with your sexuality that like you can't handle a naked man like brushing past you while he walks by, not touching you, but like, it's a tight space, whatever. Maybe you need to
Is that about comfortable with your sexuality, or is that about physically? Because a woman, if a woman's passing by, you're not, even if it's an ugly woman that you're not attracted to, you're probably not freaking out the same way as when the guy. I treat when men either make a pass at me or, like I said, if like our thighs rubbed,
I treat it the same way as if it was a woman I'm really not attracted to.
Well, I don't mind a guy making a pass at me.
Sure,
That means on some level I have some style, or I don't mind that. But there's vegans who you can sit right next to me and eat meat, and there's vegans who are like, just the thought and smell and look of meat freaks me out. So that's not about their veganism.
I think that person and the guy who can't handle that he's like within 3 inches of another naked man, both of them need to chill the fuck out.
They're uptight vegans.
They're both uptight people. Exactly.
You need to accept some meat in your world.
Yeah, so I don't think you need to like accept like play with another man. I had a threesome with this couple last month who like they really wanted to buy a guy. I was like, I'm just not comfortable with that. But to have him involved in a way when they at one point wanted to watch me stroke. So I'm stroking my dick and I'm like, I'm inviting him in to make she's saying, oh, you've got a great dick. And I'm inviting him to make I'm like, and hey, your name, what do you think? Like I'm inviting him in rather than completely excluding him just because I'm not interested. So I think if you're at a group play encounter, like you need to be comfortable, especially if there's a lot of people, with some incidental contact, even if it's just people walking by. If there's a lot of hands going on, like, yeah, you might be fingering someone while I'm reaching over to grab her breast, and then if your arms touch, there are some dudes who might freak the fuck out.
Is jealousy more common?
I think jealousy,
like a couple comes in thinking they want to experience it, and then he's like, wait, she's enjoying that more than I thought she would, than she does with me.
Well, again,
because there's no way to know ahead of time how you're going to react.
Of course, and I think what it comes down to is how you react. Because no one's saying jealousy is bad and you shouldn't feel jealous. No one says non-monogamous people don't get jealous. It's about how we handle the jealousy. So if that situation happens in a couple, you communicate. You say, hey, I just got to call a timeout or a pause or a hard stop, or hey, can we just hit pause real quick? And you take 5 minutes and then you either come back and say, you know what? We're not comfortable with it. Or you go with like, hey, we talked about some things and, oh man, we're really excited to get back into it with you. I think it's something I think you would agree with, that a lot of people are just, at the end of the day, terrified to communicate with one another. And I should say, by the way, the person I'm talking to right now is Brian Howie, host of the Great Love Debate, who has so many questions about orgies, more than I ever thought he would have.
Well, because people ask me these questions and I don't have them. No.
Oh.
I shot, the closest I think I've come was I went to a dungeon here in New York, and my friend who is a dominatrix was shooting a slaver size workout video. So she had about 12 of her clients, and so I'm there, and there's guys there, and they're in gag balls and tutus, and she's yelling at them and telling them to do push-ups and everything. And for the first hour, I'm like, God, these guys are so fucked up, like that they like this. And then after an hour, I realized that they liked that more than I like anything, and I felt like I was the outsider. And that was so weird over the course of an hour. I'm like, I wish I loved that. They're so happy. I'm not that happy. It was a very like eye-opening thing that you're judging something that whether you don't like it or you don't understand it or you don't know it, and then you see that for that person that works, and then I never really judged anybody again after that.
Yeah?
Yeah. It was the craziest thing. It was like, that guy's so into this. I'm not into anything like that.
Yeah, you're like, even vanilla sex. I'm not even that excited about it.
Yeah, it was the strangest thing. I'm like, has like her stiletto in his jugular, and he's so happy that I'm like, why wouldn't I be happy like that? Like, it was really just a weird experience that once you stop judging, you're like, well, what is it about it that they like, and what is it? And then you start to look at it, and it quote unquote normalized over the course of an hour. It was just their thing.
And also, like, what does it say about you, your reaction to it? So,
that you can't. That's why I'm like, don't ever judge somebody's happiness, unhappiness, preferences, or whatever, because unless you're actually experiencing it the exact same way they're experiencing it, with the same experiences leading up to it, you don't know what's radical, you don't know what's experimental, you don't know what's boring to anybody, And so, I didn't sign up for a membership there or anything, but it was really like, huh.
Yeah.
No judgments.
So that's the closest you've been to being like nude with a group of people.
I've been nude with 2 people, but they're both female.
Sure.
But one of things, that's happened to me a couple times back in the day. One of 2 things happens, or at least my experience with it. Either you liked one more and one got a little mad, or they liked each other more and you felt in the way.
Uh-huh. There's a joke I do. I say I used to have a lot of threesomes with my ex, or as my ex would call it, lesbian sex, where Billy holds my hand.
Yeah, that's sort of what it is. Because once they're going down that road, then they're like, "What do you? We don't need you that much, dude."
But that's fine. At that point, I'm like, I've got a great show to watch, or I can go get some water.
Yeah,
they'll
they'll
probably find interest in me at some point.
Yeah, at some point, I'll have some purpose, like to pay for something here. But yeah, so I don't need it.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one's plenty.
Well, you're a semi-confirmed bachelor. I feel like you've been.
I've been a bachelor my whole life. I feel like I've never been married.
You seem like you're professionally a bachelor.
I think I'm a little like Clooney was. Clooney was divorced all that time, but he had this. The people thought of him as a bachelor, like he's never going to marry. People forgot that in his 20s he was married,
right?
Because he didn't put that out there. I have been more recently pretty open about how. It wasn't just I was just like leading this playboy lifestyle. It was sort of I was emotionally walled off and had trouble getting into the deep relationships that most normal. So I would have long-term girlfriends, and then there was always sort of a barrier. So now I have somebody I like, I'm comfortable with. She's awesome, and it took the right person to allow me to be in that situation. So it was about a combination of me willing to go there, and they're willing to see like. It's going to be okay here, and now we're fine.
How long's this been going on?
A while.
A while?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm out. I don't need an orgy.
He's out. It's great.
I'm out.
Look at that.
Yeah. Well, because I've had this conversation with you before, and I'm probably wrong, and I'm probably judgmental to say this. I think if you need several, it's because you don't have one. Mm-hmm. And some people are like, you're going to have a better experience with one if you have several. Like I get there's both sides to this.
I think it's controversial for poly people to admit that there are poly or quote unquote poly people who do that. I think there are some people who are, they treat it like Pokemon. They're like, well, I got to catch them all. I got to get all the girls. And people always ask me if I'm poly. And I was like, I mean, I don't know if I ever told you why I started the podcast, but it's because women would sleep with me, but they wouldn't date me. And I wanted a relationship.
That sounds like the dream. Back in your 20s.
Right. But like, I wanted a girlfriend. And so, when people be like, so like, are you poly? Are you this? And I'd be like, I don't know, maybe, but I'd like to get one girlfriend before I think about 7.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. See, I always had a girlfriend or could have a girlfriend. But so it was like I needed lots of different types of girlfriends because I wasn't really sure what worked for me, I think. So
what do you mean different types?
Like this kind of crazy or that kind of crazy?
Oh,
there's a lot of different types
endearing himself
difficult
to half the
or
audience.
Crazy. Well, I know that's what I thought at the time.
I thought you were going to be like, well, one's kind of like into sports, one's into cooking.
No, one was an alcoholic, one was a bulimic, one was a drug addict. Like, again, I would intentionally date, again, don't take this term wrong, intentionally flawed women or women who had some overt issue. And we all have these, but they were more overt. So I have lupus. I have diabetes. I'm like, yes, let's go out.
Dude, it's never lupus. Did we not watch House?
Yeah, there was lupus. For a long time, I dated lupus because I'm like, well, we need to focus on your issue, and then nobody was going to turn the spotlight on me. Uh-huh. And so, and it isn't nice of me to be here despite your issue. Like, I wouldn't say that, but part of me would think that because if I ever found somebody who, at least on the surface, had it all together, or then I felt inadequate.
Yeah, they're like, I'm good now. Let's figure out what's fucked up with you.
Yeah, so you would intentionally land on these because people would say to me all the time, like, you date the most fucked up, crazy, bitchy, whatever girls, and I'm like, isn't that wonderful of me that I don't care? I don't judge them. But really, it wasn't about any sort of, me being a good guy. It was about me being an insecure guy.
And have you been doing this pretty much like your whole dating life?
Yes, until I went to therapy, and then the therapist explained why that it was rooted in my own insecurity and issues and all these kind of things.
How long have you been in therapy? In this like
that it sort of fixed it, maybe like 3 years, and sort of the Great Love Debate sort of kicked that into drive. Like when we started doing the Great Love Debate shows,
which of course is, if you want to tell them what that is.
The Great Love Debate is a live touring show in theaters and comedy clubs around the country. We've been to 84 different cities over the last 5 years, where it's sort of town hall style, where men and women get in a room and have this sort of open, honest, free-flowing conversation about love, sex, dating, relationships,
right.
And it goes in all sorts of directions. But when we started this, I was more like Jerry Springer, like, you people are fucked up. I have no trouble dating, and I would sort of just stir the pot and see what would come out. So you get a couple hundred people in a room.
You would be more unlikable in the past than you were now.
Oh my God. I would be more antagonistic because I would be super judgmental. Now I'm sort of on some level selling hope. Before I was like, I just want to be this as uncomfortable as possible because I didn't really understand it. I understood it I understood the woman. I really didn't understand the men. I'm a guy, but I didn't understand how many men were hurt or angry, or I didn't understand any of that because I never paid attention to it, and I certainly didn't ask the question of myself. And then about halfway through the second year, somebody was like, said something, and I'm like, these people are feeling stuff and talking about, I don't even know what they're really talking about. Like, it's not even like I've never heard before. I'm like, I don't even understand. So I'm like, I need to figure that out. And I went to therapy. And the therapist made me understand why I wasn't feeling things or understanding things or whatever. And then suddenly, you go back to 5-year-old Brian and all these kind of stuff, and how you never trusted the concept of love because you didn't trust your parents' love for each other or for you and all that kind of stuff. So it was always sort of, I would always say, I put enough chips on the table to stay in the game, but I would never go all in any situation. And that therapist got me to go to these places,
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So
then the shows got better when I was part of the muck. Like when people were like, oh, I'm just like everybody else here. Somebody came up to me in a show in San Diego, and she goes, I was here 2 years ago. I can't believe the difference. And I'm like, yeah, the show's changed a lot. She goes, no, you seem like a different person. And that freaked me out. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And instantly I reverted into kind of being a dick mode. Yeah. Because that was too vulnerable for me. But, people pick up on just the slightest change.
And it's a better show for it.
Yeah. We used to have people either leave the show.
I can imagine.
Or, especially in New York, because New York with women are a little challenging.
I think. Sorry, I misunderstood. I think you said feminist, and then you just came off as challenging.
They're a little too. We'll get into that.
Okay.
But the show went from people would wake up the next day and think, "I really wish I didn't go to that." It just reinforced everything I thought. To now, at least usually, people are like, "I went to this thinking that I was not like everybody else, and I left thinking we're all like this, and I feel much better." And so that change came from my change. Yeah. I think
I enjoy the show more than I thought I would when I first showed up to check it out. Our mutual acquaintance Steve Dean, he was going to do it. He's like, "You should come by and check it out. I'm on panel." So I came by and then I was like, "Oh, this is so like heteronormative. This is very like men and women are different." But I think when I started to figure out the context for you, I became so much like comfortable with what was happening because I realized like one, there's a specific audience that's there. And then you were like, we're selling hope.
Well, not only that, we're selling hope, but we've done gay shows, we've done black shows, we've done Asian shows, we've done Jewish shows, college, every possible demo we've done. And if you printed out the transcript to all of them, you couldn't tell right away which group you were dealing with because it's still about confidence and communication.
Until one of them got into like a bit about Cher concerts, and you were like, I think I know which one this is.
Maybe, right, it is. But because it really, the root of any interpersonal dynamic or relationships is confidence and communication. That's really what we're selling here at the end of the day. So, because we get a lot of people who say exactly what you say. They're like, they'll send us an email or they'll see a press release go out and they're like, that's so heteronormative. And I'm like, I guarantee you, if you got a couple hundred of your friends and we did the same kind of show, it's pretty close.
Yeah. And what I appreciate that it's like, it's not a show where it says, okay, well, men, you need to go out there and be confident and pick up the women. There's a lot of very interesting. I love your Starbucks example. Where at one point in the show, you usually get two people to stand up, and it usually gets a man and a woman to stand up. And he's like, okay, now I want you to pretend you're behind her in line at Starbucks, and then, and just start talking to her. Like,
and you have to figure out how to, in 2018, when they're staring at their phone or they got their headphones in, you've got to figure out in real life, in real time, how to do that. And we all have these sort of barriers. I brought up the gay shows that we do. You know what the biggest challenge is in the gay dating community? The 23-year-old gay guy, he's been out for 15 years. He was probably prom king. The 55-year-old gay guy, half his friends are dead, and he had to be married for 20 years. And the disconnect between the generations on it that they don't understand, they don't appreciate, is crazy. And it really affects it. Same with on the lesbian side, there's women who've been lesbians their whole life exclusively, the Gold Star lesbians. And then there's some who are like, I don't like my boyfriend, I'm going to try this for a while. And they don't like that either. So within each group, there's still these communication, confidence, past issue breakdowns that need to be put out there.
How does the live show change in some of the queer versions that you'll do?
I
always
start out like, what are the biggest challenges? And then I sort of wing it from there. And they're pretty similar. Like, the gay guy, it's a little more normal to have a little more wiggle room in your relationship sexually. But that's still about what is everybody comfortable with, and gay marriage hasn't changed a lot in terms of they just wanted the right to do it, but it isn't really most of the really solid relationships that I know are gay couples who are happy and open and communicative and all that kind of stuff. But in terms of the process of it, no difference. The black shows are a little different because the sisters are mad. Real mad. They're mad because they think there aren't enough good black men, and the ones there are going for the white girls, and the white guys are not going for the black girls, or the pool. They feel the pool of possibilities is too small for them.
Do you find that like these, whether it be the different theme shows with different groups or just men and women in general, there's like a lot of stereotypes that we've embodied, even if we're part of these groups that are holding us back?
Yeah,
so,
we want to believe that's the case.
Because it's easier to think there aren't enough good black men out there as a black woman to date than to think like, oh, maybe I'm just having a hard time.
I say at every show, it's never that you haven't met the right person, it's that you haven't been the right person. It's so much. We do these shows in Atlanta, and the women in Atlanta, even every show we do there, they're like, it's 7-1 women to men here. I'm like, it absolutely is not. It is 50-50 in every city in America. At most, it's like 50.6 or. But if they believe that to be the case, then it's not me. It's the city. It's the lack of choices. It's anything, and it's about not taking personal responsibility for your own happiness, your own journey, all these kind of things. Everywhere we go, and the media perpetuates this. I get journalists telling they're like, it's 12-1, it's 5-1, it's 6-1, and I'm like, it absolutely. I go, how could that even be?
Impossible.
It's impossible. And then when they break it down, they're into like, well, good guys or this kind. I'm like, that's another variable too. That's subjective.
I love John. Did you read John's book?
John Berger's book?
Yeah. So he's been on the show. And what I loved was that, like, yes, there's a lot of, for the most of the book, it's saying, it's the ratio, it's not you, right? But until he gets to the end and says, it's actually just because you're limiting yourself to college educated people, like, and you're college educated and you're limiting yourself to that. Because if you expand your options, all of a sudden it starts to become more 50-50. And it doesn't mean that person's any better or worse than the finance guy with a master's.
Right. He preaches mixed collar relationships, which is a really good term. And if these women really want these college educated guys, I'm like, go to San Jose.
Sure.
They're filled with all these really smart Stanford and Harvard guys. And I go, and you wouldn't date any of them. You wouldn't date any of them. So it's really not that either. It's what you want to believe that my choices are because people suck. It's not me. Makes it easier for people.
Yeah. Has doing the show like improved your dating life, you think? Or have you been doing this as the thing that you're in that you haven't said the word relationship? Has that been, did that overlap doing the live shows more?
Well, I started in a relationship and finished in a relationship, I guess.
Okay.
I mean, I started when I was in one and it wasn't a healthy one. And I've gotten healthier, and the show has had its ups and downs, at least our heteronormative?
You would say, well, because
there's been 2 points that have changed the show. The election, right after the election, was really, really hard, especially in New York.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd be surprised. We go to Dallas, they're all love Trump.
Dallas is a very,
great
city.
So I'm saying, but in New York, right after the election, the women wanted to blame all of the men, even though Trump won white women voters, but not in New York, he didn't. That was a challenge. We worked our way back, and then the Me Too stuff just, like, a lot of guys just dropped out. They're like, I'm not dealing with this. It's one thing that if you reject me when I ask you out, I don't want to be called a pervert. I don't want to be fired. I don't want it. Virtual porn is ready. I'm out.
But do they get, I mean, do you agree with the assessment that it's like their big fear is being called a pervert and like her big fear is being raped?
Well, there's a real, we're lumping a lot of, we're lumping, you're really hot. You want to go out sometime with being raped.
But I don't think...
We're lumping it into a big pool.
I'll put it this way. I don't think the mainstream consensus is that's what's going on. I think there's some people who are unhinged who before Me Too were also the crazy person on the subway shouting. I think that person was yelling at that guy either way. I don't think Me Too had anything to do...
It's the guy now. Yeah. People are already... I always say that the women want the men to try harder and the men want the women to make it easier. Okay? Mm-hmm. That's sort of where it comes down to.
Sure.
Men were already a little bit too passive in the last 5 years or 10 years for a lot of different reasons. And now, since the Me Too stuff, there's that one extra beat of hesitation that leads tons of opportunities to disappear. Because I believe there's a certain amount of opportunities every day where you can recognize them, act on them, or don't kill them, that will lead to all sorts of possibilities. Because Me Too has made everybody, in a lot of ways good, pause extra, those opportunities are cut in half.
I have very sane friends. My very, very sane female friends. The ones who like I trust when they tell a story about something that happened to them on the subway, like mm-hmm. I am believing that story. I have ones who I question their judgments. But of all the ones who I do trust their judgment have told such multiple terrifying stories about men who like don't go, oh, hey, excuse me, miss. And then they say, they don't answer, or they say, oh, no, thank you. And the guy stops. Mm-hmm. I've never seen any of these women talk shit on the internet about guys who say, hey, excuse me, and then respected it when she didn't answer or said, I'm doing a thing, right? It's always the guy who is persisting through it, that we've unfairly taught them to do through media for decades.
I heard somebody say the other day, well, things are going to change because women are so united. I said, women have never been more divided in the history of this country. Half of the women are like, I have been itching for this fight for 20 years. We need to blow up the system. It sucks. They're right. And half the women are like, shut the fuck up. You're going to scare off all the rest of the men. And that's and there's a huge disconnect even when we do our shows in New York now.
But that's only because the half that is mad at the half that wants to change things, that's only because like 5% of that half is really loud and fucking nuts because it's an extreme side.
Well, there's 5%. It's
a radical faction of it. So this side is actually yelling mad at that radical faction.
And there's 5% of men who are like, women are gold digging bitches and whatever.
Right. We have to not see each other as those extreme parts.
I get that. Yeah. But the men who are in this sort of 20% who are on the fence, it's made them think twice, porn is real accessible. There are options, and you can get a reasonably satisfying experience without getting rejected, and that's a huge problem.
I think it's good that we're thinking twice.
Oh, I think it's good overall, too. You have conversations about it. You're not afraid to discuss this stuff, but I do shows in Seattle and Denver and San Jose and places where the men are, to be generous, socially awkward.
Okay.
They've already been thinking 20 times. Now they're thinking 10 more times. And they're like, I'm never going to solve this. They hear the real gray. They're like, is that bad? I can't do that. And they're like, in 2 years, I'm going to be able to put on a helmet. Somebody who looks just like Jessica Alba is going to tell me I'm amazing and give me a reasonably satisfying sexual experience. Those guys are out, and they are not coming back. And there's a lot of college-educated guys, ladies. They're gone. Sure. They're never coming back. And a lot of women who are like, I don't need a man, they're not coming back. So the dating pool is shrunk in 8 months as we tape this. For real.
I don't think those guys are gone. I think they just need to know that they're not. I think the big thing, again, it's like there's a big fear of this, like, I think we perceive this humiliation, like you were saying earlier about the orgy stuff. It's like if you got rejected, let's say 10 times by different people at a sex party, maybe it's a party with like 200 people, you got rejected 10 times. It feels humiliating, but no one else at this party probably saw it. So I don't think it's actual humiliation, because I don't think if anyone else sees it, then you're not humiliated. So I think there's this perceived, like if we get rejected trying to talk to a woman on the subway, unless she has a big freak out, which really isn't going to happen unless you're going to, like, she's actually crazy, or you are crossing a line. Because no one's going to get mad, no reasonable person could get mad at, hey, excuse me, miss, one time. And if you stop
but some, it's different in certain cities we go to. When we do the Great Love Debate in New York, the guy thinks if he gets the microphone, he's going to get laid. When we do the show in Seattle, the guy thinks if he gets the microphone, he's going to get laughed at. Because that was the experience in high school. And a lot of people never get past, everybody saw me and laughed at me when I was 15. Because somebody said that to me. It's like, if I went up to this woman and she gets rejected, everybody's going to see it. I go, nobody's paying any attention to you. You think that people are paying attention to you. That's almost this weird self-absorbed thing that people think. That's not easily convincible. Right. So if they're like, I like playing video games, and I like to look at girls naked, and the technology is bringing those two things together, they're not coming back.
Then let them go, I say.
But that's not a small.
Combine it with some healthy, like, ethical non-monogamy becoming more mainstream, I think it'll work out.
I don't know if non-monogamy is becoming more mainstream, or if it's becoming a place where people can't connect in a healthy monogamous relationship are going. I mean, there's two ways to look at it. But better or worse. I don't know.
That statement implies that monogamy, just in the phrasing of it, implies that monogamy is the more ideal moral thing to do.
Well, I don't know about moral, but I think if you gave people here's a document and here's a notary, and I'm going to give you a pathway to a healthy, loving, sexual, trusting relationship with just one other person, would you sign up for that?
Sure.
Everybody would sign up for
that. But also, if I give you the same thing that says you can have that and have sex with other people, I think a lot of people would sign that too.
I don't think they would.
I think if they genuinely knew that was the thing, if you're giving them this guaranteed piece of paper that says this is how life's going to go,
I think they would think that's complicated and risky. I don't think they would trust it.
But then why should they trust the paper you're going to give them for that?
Because that's what they really want.
Or they're more likely what they've been taught.
Maybe, but that's not changing. In the next 100 years,
I think it's already been changing.
It's people are looking for other outlets to be happy.
There grew. I think there are these. I think there are the people, like I said earlier, the people who treat poly like it's Pokemon. So some people who are just like, they're socially sexual beings. They're not looking for relationships. They're aromantic. Sociosexual aromantic, right? So people who just want to have some fun, awesome sex, not have romance, whatever. But I think there's also people who genuinely do feel like I can have this relationship and I can have this relationship, and they don't interfere with each other.
But there aren't. I haven't met anybody who's done it 10 years.
I've met quite a few.
Well, I think then people need to hear from them more.
And that's the thing. I think we are hearing more as podcasts have gotten bigger.
Yeah.
And with digital media, we are hearing from these people. And the fact that we even have these terms are terms that weren't around. Like just the language has changed in the last 10 years. I think it proves that it has become more mainstream. That you do see, even when they are just clickbaity articles, we're seeing articles about like throuple gets married, right? Like that wasn't around 20, 30 years ago.
I know lots of married women who are like, I don't care if my husband touches anybody but me. I'm tired. I got the kids. Go do whatever you want. They're open about it. It works for them. People are looking to alternate paths or whatever. I just think that some people, that works in a healthy way, and some people are hiding in that.
For sure. But I think we could say that about like almost.
You could say that about
else.
getting married to your high school sweetheart too.
Yeah.
I totally agree. There's a lot of people who've been married. My parents have been married 53 years. I don't think they like each
Really?
other. I don't think they like each other.
I just assumed from what you were talking about 5-year-old Brian. It
works the opposite. I mean, sometimes it works. My parents got divorced and they yelled at each other, and I don't want that. I looked at it like, I don't want that. They've been married for all this time. This doesn't seem loving to me.
Okay.
So it could work either way. Staying together was bad to me. I'm like, I'm not signing up for that.
Gotcha.
So it can work either way. Getting out of a bad relationship is just as good a skill as getting into a good one. And a lot of people would rather be in a bad relationship than no relationship, and that's not good.
So like during your live show, like there is a portion, like especially towards the end, where there's a little bit more like Q&A type stuff. Like, does non-monogamy, poly, does that come up in the live shows?
It does. It comes up more in certain cities. It comes up a lot in Portland. It comes up a lot in Austin. It comes up in a lot in San Francisco.
Yeah.
It comes up in a lot. I'd like to do a show that was just completely what's the term? Poly-friendly?
Poly-friendly, yeah.
People, because I'm curious.
You offer, you know how you do that? You offer like a buy two, get one free ticket.
Yeah, I think you could. I think most of our audience, though, they're like, that's not what they're looking for.
Oh, no, definitely. Even in the New York shows, I picked up on that. Most of the audience was 30s, 40s, with some in the 20s, some in the 50s.
Yeah, as we tape this show today, I have a show tonight here in New York, and there's a guy on our stage, and he's in an open marriage. Mm-hmm. He's very funny and entertaining. He's got a really good perspective on it. No, I think he's a dating coach.
Sure.
His name's Mr. Lucario, and when he says what he says about their relationship and what their understanding is, sounds really smart and really dead on, and some people are just like, la la la, I don't want to hear anything about this, but he's like, what, marriage means that this, and he makes you really question a lot of things. It's super controversial. He's out on the fringes, and it makes me seem more reasonable, so I like when he does the show. But listening to him, all of the points he makes, there's an argument for them. He's not just a misogynist pig.
Exactly.
Like, and a lot of people think that's the case about.
Because there are those guys, but that's not what poly is.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, we've had some poly people, and we try and open it up to, because we think that there's a nugget in everybody's experience that can apply to everybody. Mm-hmm. But, we do shows in the Bible Belt where they get mad. Because I made a comment one time in Indianapolis. I'm like, come on, there's no virgins here. We're all adults. And then I got an email the next day like, there are lots of virgins here. And I'm like, what are you talking?
We're proud of it, guys.
Yeah, sort of. And I'm like, so I have to change a lot of stuff depending on where I'm doing the show. You can't go anti-Trump in Atlanta. You can't go pro-Trump in Los Angeles. You have to sort of, where am I right now? What am I dealing with? There's a lot of really hurt people hiding behind their faith one way or another, whether it's Jewish or Christian or whatever. There's a lot of people that are like, that's my barrier to whatever.
And it's interesting because I have listeners who like are from Bible Belt and who hit me up being like, your show is the only place I get to hear anything close to sex talk. Because no one around me is going to talk about it.
There's a lot of men. We go to Nashville and they're like, I want a good Christian woman who's going to walk with the Lord and we're equally yoked and all that. And I'm like, I think you think that woman is less likely to hurt you. Mm-hmm. I think that's what it's about. And I think you're using your faith as a shield to not get hurt. And the women on some level, they're like, well, I think a guy who goes to church every week is a good guy. And they know that's not true.
Yeah.
but they can't get around the fact that that's a lie or that's not a good gauge of doing that thing. So they're still going to fall back on that default of church means good, praying means good people, even though it's probably the opposite. Yeah. But, Jewish people too. Like we do Jewish shows, and a little bit they're like, all right, we've all dated outside our faith. We got to figure this out now. We got to get back together. Like we all made our bar mitzvahs together. Let's date, seriously, because our families want that. So
it's one of the things I really like in the shows, and that's like the thing I think does tie all these different groups or whatever you are together. It's one of the things that allowed me to be like, this isn't just a guy doing a show where it's about how men and women are different. When you talk about confidence, because that is applicable to men, it's applicable to women, it's applicable to queer people, it's applicable to fucking anybody.
Yeah,
is having confidence.
Well, I think everybody wants to be confident, and I think everybody wants a confident partner. But I think there's only about 10% of people maybe that are sort of naturally confident in the situation you want them to be, and then there's another pool of people that can be confident if the environment is a place that can foster confidence, or you can manifest
that.
Nice
to meet you.
Right. And so if it's it's sort of on the partner, the relationship, the situation to sort of create a little petri dish where somebody whose confidence wasn't right there can come out a little bit more. And I think our show does that. We've had 47 couples that we know of get engaged after meeting at a great love debate. That's a tremendous statistic. Really doesn't have anything to do with anything that anybody says. It's about this atmosphere of, I'm not so different from everybody else. I can talk to somebody about this and things happen.
It's a great stat. All I've got like 13 pairs of people who have banged each other because they listen to the show.
That's
all I
nothing to
got
sneeze
so
at,
far.
my friend. That's more than most bars. You could walk into a bar and they haven't had 13 people do that in the same amount of time. Well, it's conversation. It's information, conversation, communication. All of this, it matters.
So since the Me Too movement really went underway, how have you altered how you discuss confidence? Have you talked about? Do you throw in lines about like common sense boundaries, such as like a woman with her headphones on?
Well, I say my boundary now that's going to eliminate a big chunk of the problems is just don't do anything in the workplace.
That's a good idea.
Right. Now, a lot of people spend a lot of their waking time in the workplace. A lot of very happy people met in the workplace. My parents met in the workplace. I get that. I'm like, I didn't say don't do anything with a coworker or whatever. I'm like, just don't do anything within the walls of save it for happy hour at Applebee's sometime, maybe. That's okay. But once you take that away, then you're taking away like a power employer-employee thing. You're taking that off the table.
And that also doesn't mean send dick pics through Facebook Messenger, guys. That doesn't mean...
Yeah, that doesn't...
It's like, what? I was home when I did it.
But that doesn't mean that either. But, as I bring up in the show a lot, the reason the guy is sending the dick pic is because you're not responding to anything. But you're not responding to hello. It's not an excuse. It's an explanation. And some women like it. So you can't say, well, all women like it. If you responded, ladies, to, hey, how are you? We just, which is boring, but something like that, more, you're not going to get the dick pics. The guy's shouting with the dick pic.
I can feel eyes rolling that are listening.
Well, I've done this. I ask 100 women at our show. I go, how many women here would respond to a poem? Like one hand goes up. And I go, how many women here would respond to a dick pic? Maybe 3 hands go up, which isn't a lot. But I'm like, if the odds are the same, and then so I go, give me something, ladies, that if any guy sent it to you, you would respond regardless of whether I thought he was good looking. They got nothing.
But do you?
Nothing.
But that it doesn't exist, because if it was just like, oh, I get a few messages in a day, and I would respond to whatever, okay. But when it's like, in some cases, especially in like a New York City, literally 50 Tinder messages in a day.
They're not responding.
They're not going to respond to all of them. But now that doesn't mean that they should also get like 44 dick pics because they didn't respond.
I don't think they are getting 44 dick pics. But they aren't responding to the odds are not better if they got 50 nice messages. That's my point.
The way I understand your
He's
point.
saying,
I understand the point that he's doing a risk assessment. He's saying like, well, I can risk being an asshole, or risk being a nice guy, and my odds are the same. And so I'm just going to...
It's not even that. It's, well, she's not answering the poems. Let me just go for the low-hanging fruit who will answer.
Now let's, but what if we just went with like, take the no? What if we just taught dudes to take the non-answer as non-interest, or maybe say, hey, send one, maybe send a follow-up, and then if you get nothing, leave it the fuck alone.
Because there's a lot of guys out there who believe that if she would just talk to me, she would like me.
And that's toxic, and we need to stop that.
Well, I get
I think
that.
we need to rewire our brains a bit.
Yeah, you're right. I'm not saying
Okay,
that.
okay.
But I'm saying a lot of the women need to do a better job of answering, hey, how are you? Because your opening line on Bumble, ladies, is no better than the guys'.
Oh, that I agree
so
with.
His
That's a whole
boring,
different thing.
boring open line, just because he didn't say he was 6'2" and good job and all that kind of stuff, you may have to respond to 3 more messages a day. You would see how those dick pics would go away a lot quicker. You would.
But that's a lot of... You're asking for extra labor from women just to make men not show them their cocks.
No, I'm saying they have to show them their cocks because there's not a reasonable response.
But they
If
don't need...
50
But they're not
people-
entitled to a response.
I think that as humans, we are entitled to a certain amount of courtesy.
I used to believe this until I had multiple friends show me their phones, and I just looking at a friend's like amount of Tinder matches in a day. I was overwhelmed just looking at it, and I was like, okay, I get it. Like as I used to say, like, come on, you can just say no, thank you, just respond no, thank you. And then I saw how many times they would have to do that, and I was like,
okay. So say you're a woman and you're out in the street in New York City, and 50 people come up to you and say hello in a day. You wouldn't ignore or say fuck off to 50 people, but online they will.
Yeah, they will with them headphones on. Ooh.
Headphones is different, but like the way it was 20 years ago, you would say hi. You would engage face to face. So if you want to take the engagement out of it and you want to take all that stuff in person, we're both going to have to change. So as men, we used to just be able to go up to girls and say, hey, you want a drink? You want to do a shot? You want some blow? You could do that, and that would work. Yeah. Well, we have to get a little more creative online now. Dick pics isn't creative, but we're both going to have to listen and communicate with each other better because everything's an opportunity.
I think the communication, of course, like I've been saying the whole time, key. It's something we're all too terrified to do because what are we? We're afraid of the rejection. We're afraid of the perceived humiliation.
Well, we had a woman in Los Angeles stand up at our show, and she said, "Send me the dick pic and send me the FICO score, and we'll go from there." And the women applauded like crazy.
Sure.
They're like, "Those are the things we need to know." And so the guys hear that, and they're like, "My FICO score sucks, so I'm not doing that either." You know, it was almost like permission.
I got a pretty good FICO score. I've been working really hard at it.
Just send that.
Yeah, I'll start putting that in the fucking Bumble bio.
Yeah.
I do think women also have their side that they got to do too. I don't think they're all totally off the hook. The Bumble messages I get I get so many that are just like, "Hey, how are you?"
Yeah.
And you can imagine, knowing me, that my there's a lot to work with whatever I have in my Bumble bio.
I'm sure.
You know,
yeah,
it's like,
I'm sure.
So there's like a lot to play with. You send me, "Hey, how are," like I get, "Hey," do you know what I respond with? I say, "Hi."
Yeah, women.
I'm like, no, you're not going to pass this to me.
Right. Women on Bumble generally are doing the absolute bare minimum to stick their foot in the door so the time doesn't run out and putting the burden of communication on him. Which, guys, good. Take it from there. But not every guy. And guys are like, well, what is she going to respond to? So the guys gotta get a little more interesting and clever or whatever. But some of them are like, well, let me start with the dick pic. And if she likes that, I'm okay.
But there's a place for that, and it's called Field. It's called the Peer Hookup app. There are apps for that. I don't think Bumble and Tinder are the place for that.
Well, it was Craigslist casual encounters.
Well, then no, and then that's an appropriate place. I mean, you're talking to Mr. Craigslist here. So it's like,
does that still exist, or is that gone?
Sadly,
Shut down,
because
right?
of Fosta Sesta and the attack on sex workers in this country, they have also taken away all of Backpage. They took out not just casual encounters. I think they took all the personals off of Craigslist. So even if you were looking for marriage, which I don't know why you would do that on Craigslist, but there are people there.
Hey, Plenty of Fish is about the same as Craigslist, so you take your shot.
It's all down because of that, because they're afraid of potential prosecution. So.
Yeah.
But the woman who said last week actually I unmatched with someone because she did a hey, I did hi, and then she said nothing after. So then I was like, okay, she's cute. Like, let's try something out. Let's try again. So I was like, I sent a GIF of just, I think it was the bear waving hi. It's one of the ones that show up when you search hi in the GIF thing. And I was like, okay, I like the bear one. And then she just says, hey. And I'm like, you're not passing this to me. I'm like, I gave you a GIF.
That's a good line. You're not passing this to me.
Don't pass this to me. I like Steve Dean's very common thing that he'll give to people. Is like, if you don't know what to open with a GIF.
No, because that's an age thing. A lot of women over 35 don't want any part of a GIF.
No?
No.
Ladies, listen over 35. Let me know.
They don't. They don't. It's sort of like the way ladies over 35 don't want to be asked out by text. Ladies under 35 don't want any part of a phone call. Like there's some variables in that. Huh?
I'd love to be part of a phone call.
I don't want to talk to anybody on the phone.
I started switching to text because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. I would be calling people.
That's an age thing.
Yeah.
But a lot of, I did, we had one of the Bachelor winners on our podcast. And she's like, I got engaged and we were walking off the set and she's like, I don't even have this guy's phone number.
Hilarious.
And she's
that's
like,
the ridiculous thing
right?
about the whole fucking
that's what she thought.
Shows.
She's like, we'd never had a phone conversation or a text conversation. And she's like, we're engaged now.
That's just all fucking ridiculous. It's son from the show. I think the last time I did your show, or maybe 2 times ago, I was hosting a speed dating event 2 nights prior. It was for women 35 to 53 or something. It was for specifically older crowd. Talking to this woman afterwards, very attractive. Like I went up to her afterwards because I was hosting, but I was like, I don't know. She was talking to me a bit. Maybe I can. Well, let's see what happens here. And she starts talking about what she wants. She's like, oh, maybe you can help me out. I'm having trouble finding a guy who's gainfully employed and a decent human being, intelligent. And then she said, but then this is what she says, and this is here in New York City. She goes, she's probably early 40s, mid 40s, I think. She goes, and this is really important for me. I am a conservative and I want to find another guy who's conservative. And I was like, and so I was just like, what do you mean? Cause like fiscally conservative. And she's like, no, I don't want some trans whatever in the women's bathroom with me. That woman, I'm never fucking dating. She's smoking hot and I'm not fucking her either. I'm not fingering her. I'm not doing anything. But two nights later, I walked in. I got to the show early. Yeah. There's 3 people in the bar because I was very early, and one of the people waiting for the bar, this lady. And I'm like, oh, this makes so much sense. You're looking for hope here.
But does she not want the trans person in the bathroom because she's anti-trans, or that she has privacy issues?
Anti-trans, because she didn't say I don't want other women in the bathroom with me. She's like, I didn't want trans people in the bathroom with me. But so with her, she was like, now my thing with her is I'm thinking bitch, you need to move to a new city because you're gonna have a hard time.
There are no bathrooms in Los Angeles that are not.
Oh, well, I didn't mean the bathroom part. I meant finding a man who fit all of her qualifications and also was a conservative in New York City, this liberal bastion. Yeah. So it's you got to go move to Dallas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah, it's tough to have. I mean, that does matter. We travel all over. Cities have little differences, and if you're narrowing your pool by if you want to live in Los Angeles and you want to date Republican women, you have a really small pool. Mm-hmm. There just aren't that many,
and that's why you got the Trump staffers in D.C. hiding the fact that they work for him right now because they're having a hard time getting.
You
laid.
might not get hired and as an actor or an actress in if there's social media that is pro even Republican now, which is it's a choice you're making. You know that now. Mm. You're not going to get hired a lot of things if you're everybody should let everybody live their life and do what they want and all these kind of things. But I think a lot of things can be worked out with conversation.
Yeah.
It's tough to date a vegan. For me, I can work it out.
Does the politics stuff come up during the show? I gotta imagine that comes up.
It comes down to this. Democratic men generally will date Republican women because a lot of them are really hot. Republican men...
I'm immune to such follies.
Republican men will date Democratic women because a lot of them are awesome and nice and all that kind
really
of stuff. Republican women will date Democratic men because a lot of them are good guys. Democratic women will not date Republican men.
You go, girls. You go, girls.
Generally, that is the one that theoretically the Democratic woman is the most open-minded, most liberal, or whatever. She is the most closed-minded when it comes to dating.
No, not wanting to date someone who enables racist policy.
I mean,
is not
but a Republican
closed-minded.
isn't always racist policy. There's a lot of things to that. I mean, you could say a lot of again, but that's the one who's supposed to be open to everything.
Look, until
they're
kicking out my Canadian friends for the same reasons, who are taking way better paying jobs.
They are. I was a lot of times where I've tried to hire Canadian actors and actresses for various things, and they wouldn't allow it. There's a lot of discrimination against Canadians. There is.
I used to talk so much shit about Canadians until I realized how many Canadians like this show, and I was like,
there are. I have a lot of trouble always hiring a Canadian.
Damn.
Even I did an off-Broadway show here for years, and you can't hire any Canadians.
Yeah.
It's terrible. And they're fine actresses. Nope, can't hire them. So.
Oh man, Brian. Well, before we go, tell us a little bit about the podcast you do. We obviously talked a lot about the live show.
We do the Great Love Debate podcast, which is the world's number one rated listened to dating and relationship podcast. We have a lot of celebrities on there, and it's the one thing that everybody has experience with, an opinion on, and can talk about is their love life, their sex life. It's the one thing we all have in common. We all have frustration. And it goes in all sorts of directions.
Yeah.
And it's fun. I like doing the podcast.
And you also have a book coming out.
Yeah, it's called Meal Bonding. And it's a cookbook with anecdotes and recipes and everything. I don't cook, but I think a man and a woman cooking together, it's a sharing, communicative, let's work together to figure out a result. It's very metaphorical. You can get through a fight by cooking together. You can learn about something by cooking together. You can celebrate by cooking together. And it's 37 ways to cook from first date to happy anniversary.
It's like, do you want to win this argument, or do you want to not burn the grilled
cheese? If you get in a
cheese?
fight, go let's make a meal together and eat the meal together, and you'd be surprised at how a lot of countries do that. Warring tribes will be forced to eat a meal together, and that tends to end a lot of conflict.
Amazing. My last thing I want to ask you though is during the live shows, has there been a question or a thing or something that came up that you've either said I got no idea, or that you had to later, you said maybe you didn't know anything about it and you had to go figure that out for future shows? Something you were stumped by?
Well, I used to really be stumped by the how many men are carrying around fear or anger.
I thought you were going to say fanny packs.
No, I didn't know that. Yeah, they're also carrying around fanny packs. How many men are 35 years old and either are angry or afraid because of something that happened when they were 14 years old? And how they haven't dealt with that, and how that really comes into their current dating experiences and frustrations and problems, and it really does harm the women that they haven't. A lot of women do process it better, and they do get it out, and they do share it with everyone, but there's a lot of guys that are powder kegs walking around out there, and I had no idea, and now when I see it, I can sort of recognize it. Some guy stood up at our show in Seattle, and he's like, I just want babies, and that's what you're for.
What?
And I'm like this baby maker guy, and I'm like, that's crazy. And he goes, well, the woman just said that the men are good for sperm. And he's like, I want it to be the same way. And so he hears women joke about something like that. And he's
that
like,
was a joke.
And I go, yeah, they're kind of, I go, we are only good for sperm, dude, or whatever. And he's like, and I go, nobody's letting you put your seed in them, buddy, with that approach. And he thought I was wrong, and he thought everybody was wrong, and it was crazy. He was just open about that. He's like, I want to make babies now, and that's what they're for, and they won't let me make babies with them. And I was like,
how old is this gentleman?
He was like 35.
Hey.
And it was nuts. And I go, even a woman right here who wants a baby, she doesn't want you to be a father. Like, there's a lot going into this here. And he just wasn't listening. He wasn't having it.
Yeah. A lot of entitlement, a lot of toxic.
It was really weird. He really wanted babies. And he's like, by not having sex with me, you're preventing me from having my babies.
Bitch, go adopt. Go adopt.
It was the strangest thing. Yeah, that was one that I'm like, I don't even know what to do. So I kept joking the whole time. I kept calling him, hey, baby maker, you like that? And he was just kind of getting more and more humiliated, but he wasn't, I'm like, nobody's dating you, buddy.
That
It's fucked up.
is crazy pants.
Yeah.
That's such a great way to end.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Brian, where can everyone go find you?
Go to greatlovedebate.com. You can check out our live tour schedule, or the Great Love Debate podcast is on every possible podcast platform, and Great Love Debate on all social media.
Fantastic, dude. Thanks so much for chatting with me.
That was cool. Thanks, everybody.
I want to thank Brian again for coming on the show. I'm sorry that the release took so long. We actually recorded this episode an embarrassingly long time ago. Please go check out his podcast, The Great Love Debate, and follow him on the socials. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @TheBillyProcida. Say hello. Use the hashtag ManWhorePodcast. Helps me find your post. Helps me find your Insta story. And of course, you can go like the Man Whore Podcast fan page on Facebook. I just posted a photo album from the live show in Los Angeles. So if you're curious about the voices you're going to hear next week, you can go take a little preview over there. And of course, you want to say something to me a little bit longer, want to seek some advice yourself, or you want to send me some titties, you can shoot me an email at manwhorepod@gmail.com. We got merch, people. Did you know we had merch? Yeah. We got buttons, we got panties, we got t-shirts, we got all sorts of stuff. Head on over to gumroad.com/manwhorepodcast. Browse around and buy something fun. And of course, next week we have the live podcast, Man Whore Podcast live in LA. That's coming up next week with an interesting spin and a last minute replacement. Looking forward to sharing it with y'all next week. But until then, stay slutty. I'm gonna the Claire saga from the email and the intro actually continued, and it took a sad turn in my opinion. We exchanged an extra email. She makes mention about erections, and then sends me this email, which had a lot of red flags for me. I find it kind of sad, and that's why I'm kind of dumping it here in the back, because maybe less of you will hear it. But she wrote, I'm not too concerned with him losing his boner, blah, 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 blah. I don't think there has been a time when the pleasure is just directed on me for the night. I do need to show him that intimacy can still happen without a hard dick in the room. I'm going to talk to him about this because I do care about him. This isn't the first time I've debated breaking up with him, and honestly, this isn't that bad compared to other stuff he's done. I've always tried to talk to him and figure things out, and I'm going to try and do that with this. Part of the reason I haven't broken up with him is because I really don't want to be single again. I live in a super small town, and my high school has around 700 kids. This isn't an excuse, but I'm trying to keep what I have because when he's not being an ass, he's really fun to be around. One reason why I originally liked him so much was because he always made me feel good and would listen to me, and I felt amazing around him. I always wanted and try to do the same for him, but I think he's kind of lost that desire to make me feel good in certain situations. In the past, he's expressed that he doesn't know why I'm still with him. I think part of that is he thinks I'm more attractive than him, and part of it is that he makes some bad decisions. I always just try to weigh the pros and cons because I feel like in the last couple months that I'm in high school, I won't be able to find anything better. And I already sent her this, so I don't need to say this in the second person, but The most glaring of all of the obvious signs that you need to break up with this guy who struggles with the concept of going down on you. It's not even the going down on you anymore. To me, what stood out is when you said, I really don't want to be single again. This is the worst reason to stay in a relationship. This part has all to do with you. You're so young, like, don't begin the fear of loneliness now. That's for when you're 38. Okay, because that fear will keep you in worse and worse and more dangerous situations. I've known people who stayed in emotionally and then physically abusive relationships, in part because they were scared to be alone. And these are just I'm just taking some of your words and throwing them back at you right now. This isn't the first time I've debated breaking up with him. This isn't that bad compared to some other stuff he's done. He won't go down on me. I really don't want to be single again. I don't think there has been a time when the pleasure is just directed on me for the night. I'm trying to keep what I have for the sake of having it, not for the quality of the relationship. He's kind of lost that desire to make me feel good. I won't be able to find anything better. Other men will listen. Other men will make you feel good. Other men will go down on you. But regardless of any of that, if you're afraid to be alone, that is a monstrously huge red flag. Think of this week's episode with Charlene, or last week's episode with Charlene about sex and love addiction. You are setting the bar so incredibly low, and just makes me go, oh no. The amount of women who stay with a guy who hits them because, well, he's not doing that. He's so sweet. You may think you won't stay with a guy who does that to you until you do. And these are the early warning signs. I really don't want to be single again. I'm trying to keep what I have. I won't be able to find anything better. These lines echo so loudly in your email, Claire, and you will find better. You're also, fair reminder, you're 17 fucking years old. If you teach yourself to stay in relationships for these reasons, you're going to end up that 22-year-old girl who gets married, has a kid with like an exciting guy who doesn't feel right, but he's so nice to me when he's not being an asshole. And then you'll be the 24-year-old divorced single mom. And I know how that spiral at that age begins because I went to problem kid boarding school with a lot of those girls. You're 17 years old. You'll be done with high school in a few months and off presumably to other things. And most importantly, you're going to break up with him because you need to learn that fear of being single is not an excuse to not be single. And I can't emphasize this enough. There's a lot of world waiting for you. Don't let being stupid keep you from it.